100K on first day of launch, another $60,000 launch. You've heard these all before, and they pop up quite often. But the truth behind them is that they're really fancy, big figures to reel you in and grab your attention. They don't really show you the whole picture. So today I want to talk about that. Hi, I'm June, like the month, and let's dive into what is really behind those big launch figures that make us feel like, how do we get to that point? And I want to talk about a couple of ways that a sustainable business is slightly different from just focusing on launches. So let's dive in. Here are the few points that I want to run through today. First up is debunking the launch figures themselves. So there are many claims for six-figure sales, these big numbers that you commonly hear this person's doing, that person's doing. And it's really attractive because you're like, how do I hit that amount of money in such a short amount of time? That's usually the pairing of it. Big figure in dollars, short amount of days. You're like, how? Like, I've been trying this for years, or I've been working on this, or I really want the same kind of result. And the truth behind it is that they're really flashy and they don't really account for either the years of work that actually go behind the scenes or even the financial investments that actually make this kind of launch happen. Because a launch, it's not just, hey, here's a product, like, and then you just expect sales to come flowing in. It doesn't work like that. How it works is you've got to do a pre-launch, you've got to do strategy, you've got to do some marketing, of course, and make sure that there's sales. I have worked with a number of personal brands, coaches, consultants, people with really large audiences, even in the millions. And it's about how engaged their audience is in order to convert. And sometimes you don't need 1,000 followers at all. But if you have an engaged audience of true fans who just really trust you and really want to learn from you and take from your knowledge and your experience, then that's all that matters. My second point is the whole picture behind what goes into a launch. I'm going to share an example. You have a person who's claiming that they do a 50K launch within that first week of sales. So if you dig deep into what the figure actually means, they don't really go into what's involved in the back end. Things like the cost of marketing, the product development, the cost for contractors, not even ads or affiliate payments and other expenses that always happen when it comes to launches. All of those expenses aren't added into what the actual end net profit is. You usually just see the revenue numbers, which is focused solely on what sales have been made. But sometimes your cost of acquisition, meaning how much one of your leads or one of your sales actually cost you, can be really high in comparison, depending on what else you've done behind the launch. We got to really think outside of that and recognize that net income from sales of launches is a lot less than what the figure is shown. So my third point is about building a sustainable business. A business model that isn't solely focused on a one-hit kind of approach. It's more of creating a consistent number as much as you can on a regular basis, knowing that more revenue is coming in. I want to highlight and talk about why it doesn't sound so sexy. A sustainable business that just has a couple of retainers coming in each month doesn't sound as big and as like celebratory as a 100K launch. Of course not. However, if you actually break it down and do the math, in the long run, it's a long-term game. So let me give you an example. In an agency run model, or let's say you've got client work and you work on a 4K a month retainer. And let's say you have ongoing about 5 clients a month. That's 20K a month in sales. For a business model that involves more retainer basis and projects, if you compare the workload itself, you don't know what else is behind the digital product. There is usually some form of ongoing value or ongoing support that associates with this course. Like they usually get a weekly live call or weekly Zooms, let's say in a group coaching container. And that means you're constantly having to prepare and be on those calls per week as well. So you've got to really weigh up what is actually the value of each side and notice that even with a different business model, say not a launch, it doesn't mean that you can't earn as much as a launch. Because generally speaking, with online courses, or it depends on how many cohorts you have, meaning how many times you launch. Let's say it's a closed one versus an evergreen model. Evergreen models are usually a cheaper average order value. So you're not going to be earning as much as a 4K retainer. But for a higher ticket mastermind or higher ticket course, then that's going to always have like live interactive value adds, like a live call. So you've got to think about it that way, because if your digital product actually requires you to provide a whole year's worth of weekly calls, that for 100K in a launch isn't going to amount as much work in 5 months of agency work. So I just wanted to paint the picture between the two and the possibilities between them. It really depends on how, of course, you've structured the course and how you've structured the value out of that. But there is a lot more behind that than you think. Because it's worded and it's presented always in a way that's, oh, I just made 6 figures within this week. They don't specify the specifics in that. Sometimes taking it step by step, going a little slower, creates more sustainability than going really hard one time. I really wanted to bring this to your awareness because there's this misconception behind these crazy big launch numbers where it gets skewed. So that brings me to my fourth point, which is the value of the realistic goals behind these launches. I really want to encourage you to set more realistic business goals behind something like a launch. And it's all done through understanding your numbers anyway. Mentioned early on, it's about the engagement piece of how well it will convert. And I said that the number of followers doesn't matter at all. And that's absolutely true. However, if you have a larger audience and a wider network that see your content, that have access to know that you have this new offer, then you have a percentage of that number that just needs to see it. And you need to connect with that percentage of people in order to convert to your students or your customers. It's in the numbers and you just work backwards. Let's say an engagement post, you post about a product that you're launching very soon, and you ask people to engage with your post in order for you to understand who would be interested in purchasing this product. Even better way to gauge the interest is through a wait list or a registration list where they provide an email, because an email is direct communication in comparison to an Instagram or any social post that does not guarantee views. Okay? If you get, say, 500 on your list, or 1,000 even commenting that they want your product. The truth behind this, and it's in all of the numbers, even in any ads marketing, the conversion rate is generally between 1 to 3%. One, even if it's like really good. A lot of boxes need to be ticked, maybe the price point, maybe their timing. There are a lot of factors that come into this marketing piece that convert the sale. Let's get into all of that in another time. However, I do want to emphasize that you cannot assume that because you have 500 people register for your product, that 500 people will convert. Maybe not even 100 will convert by that. Okay? So that's the reality of launch figures and how they actually do convert. So the final point is passive income doesn't really mean passive. There's this misconception that because it's passive, you just make it while you sleep. And it is true to a certain extent where sales can come in while you're asleep. Yes, especially if you have all your digital products set up right. Absolutely. And it's meant to work that way. However, the entire passive element of it isn't 100% true because there is a lot of work that goes into it. If you have a successful product or service, you don't just put it out there and forget about it. There is definitely ongoing work that comes with any person who's bought it. Even as simple as customer support, email inquiries, maybe invoices or payments aren't going through. You've got to serve all of that. And you've got to make sure that you do the marketing in order to make sales on this digital product consistently. This part does not stop. Some, it might feel more passive than others because they might have resources to hire in an agency that help them with content, help them with paid ads. So that might feel more passive to them because they have a team actually supporting them in the back end. But it's not entirely passive. Like, what kind of work is actually involved is much bigger than this one-time launch and doing a lot of content around just the launches. To wrap that up, we talked about how these impressive launch numbers can be misleading. And you should be aware that behind any digital product or a course launch or anything online that's launched that way, there is more work that goes behind the scenes. There's elements of marketing, sales, customer support, all the elements that actually require more work. And that, in comparison to a different type of business model, doesn't always mean that it's doing a lot more. Don't let those launch numbers make you feel like you're not there yet or you need to chase these impressive figures. We also debunked a little behind what passive income streams really mean. Hopefully, you don't get discouraged by these flashy numbers that you see online and just focus on building solid foundations for your business, because it's the consistency and the ongoing that really wins at this. Remember that success is a journey, it's not a sprint. Let's focus on the things that actually grow a sustainable business. And if it does mean that you are going to have an incredible, huge launch, then that's great. But remember, that will probably come after a couple of failed attempts and different reiterations of a launch. And you can definitely get there. Okay. I hope that was helpful. If you like the vibe, please subscribe. I'm JuneAye, and I hope you have an amazing day. Ciao. Bye.